the woman that never left her community. Final part. Luo soon became the police's top suspect again, since his movements and physique did match the man in the footage, and wore the same shoes. Based on the surveillance they had put them under, Luo and his former cellmate did not seem that concerned about her disappearance. Luo was brought to the police station for further questioning, and he changed his story and told the police that he and his former cellmate can't find his name, were at the home all day, because of the weather, but this alibi wasn't particularly strong, since the only person who could validate it was another suspect, and told the police as he was being arrested, that he wanted to say goodbye to his son since he may not be coming back. And about said son, Luo did have disputes with Tian over the payment of their child for her studies abroad. Even had scars on his hand. Unfortunately for them, this was not the end of the case, as he claimed to have cut his hand on accident when installing a curtain. This was later proven to be true based on some dry blood on his curtains, which alongside testimony from his son also confirmed his alibi. Everything was just a coincidence. The police were now getting desperate since Tian had been missing for 20 days, and no trace of her had been found. They even questioned every adult male in Xylan, but none of them were similar in stature or movements, which meant that the person responsible was not from Xylan. The police returned to the CCTV from that day, combed through every last detail, and noticed something they had missed. In every shot of Tian, there was also a taxi in the background. The taxi had been there since she first left her workplace, and had slowly followed her from behind despite the fast speed. The other vehicles were traveling. Just as Tian entered the Xylan, the slow-moving taxi suddenly accelerated. This vehicle and its driver soon became very suspicious, but due to the angles of the CCTV, they were never able to determine its license plate. Like they did last time, the police checked the GPS records for the taxis, and found that the vehicle had left the telecom company in Xylan at the same time as Tian and entered Xylan. But curiously and suspiciously it stayed inside Xylan, parked still and stationary for 40 minutes before finally leaving. After leaving, it stopped at a gas station in Xylan and then detoured to the west side of 207 National Road, an area where nobody lived and thus would have no passengers to solicit. After 30 minutes they returned to the city. The police hastily made their way to the gas station, and luckily the establishment had not only CCTV but CCTV that was able to get a clear shot of the license plate and the driver. The driver was overweight, in his 40s, 175 centimeters tall, and wore glasses. The cameras also captured a middle-aged woman in the passenger seat of the car. Through the glass of the car window, it could be seen that she has pigtails and is wearing a black down jacket. Wearing a scarf and glasses. This was more in line with the characteristics of Tian before her disappearance. The police showed the picture of the man to Tian's colleagues, who identified him as Ren Zhiyong, a former employer they had to fire, due to his gambling habits and not taking his job seriously. Worth noting that gambling is illegal in China. Despite firing him, all of his colleagues still said that he was a good man and that they couldn't imagine him being responsible, especially since Tian was the one who had a friendly relationship with him as well. The police too were skeptical because Ren didn't have any scars on his hands. After being let go 6 months prior, he began working for a taxi service. Ren was interrogated, and he admitted that he had Tian in his taxi and that he brought her to her destination and dropped her off, but that he had never seen her since then. The police searched his vehicle, and inside nothing was out of the ordinary until they checked his trunk, and discovered 3 strands of hair long enough in length to go down to someone's shoulders. They were female hair and matched the length of Tian's. After a forensic inspection, the hairs were determined to belong to Tian. Ren was arrested on February 12, and he couldn't explain why Tian's hairs were in his trunk. To the police he didn't need to explain because the only explanation was that Ren had killed her, an explanation that Ren himself agreed with since he confessed. According to his confession, the motive was due to gambling debts, as Ren's debt he had accumulated from the mahjong parlors ranged from 200,000 to 300,000, which he could never hope to pay on his salary. On January 15 he saw Tian as she was leaving and later met up with her, inviting her to get in the taxi with the intent of asking if he could borrow money later on. Tian didn't hesitate to get inside, and the two chatted and drove around for half an hour. It was only later when he asked to borrow some money only to be told that she had none. Ren thought that she was lying to him, as he thought that she was rich due to her position in the company, so he grabbed her satchel and found only 100 yuan, and her cards. Tian refused to give the password for the cards, so he put his hands around her neck until she told him the passwords, and by the time he let go it had been too late. Ren claimed that the killing was accidental but still told the police what happened next. He panicked, hid the body inside the trunk, and drove away from the scene, withdrawing the yuan along the way before entering Xilin. Once there he found a manhole cover of a thermal well, which hadn't been tightly secured, and that was where he hid Tian's body, placing it in the well before fleeing. Ren led the police to the body and reenacted the chain of events. On January 19, 2016, Ren was found guilty and sentenced to death with 2 years of reprieve. After those 2 years were up, the sentence was reviewed like all suspended death sentences in China are, and it was determined that due to his sincere remorse and the likely accidental nature of the killing that the sentence should be commuted to life, which it was. As mentioned, Ren did express remorse since Tian was a friend, but also because of her son and parents both in their 80s. He has stated that he only blames himself. There was only one question remaining, and that was why Ren didn't have any scars on his hand. The answer: neither did the man on the CCTV footage. As it turned out, the scars were simply the cause of lighting and camera angles, as when they brought Ren to the bank to reenact his activities that day, what looked to be scarred was present on the camera footage then as well.